Hello, I'm Scott. Welcome to the 7th video in our table modelling series in Autodesk Maya. So far what we've done on this is we've spawned in a cube, we've beveled off all the corners so that we get this nice smooth curvature. We've sorted out the n-gons that appear on top from that. We've then beveled the corner edges on that so it gives us this nice tabletop shape. We've spawned in a polytorus and manipulated the geometry on that so that it's a little more to our needs. It's got a lot less polys running around it. We've beveled the inside and outside corners on that to smooth it out and give us this nice curvature. We've beveled the edge corners on it. We've then combined those two objects and merged their geometry through bridges and fill holes. We've then spawned in another cube for our table legs. We've beveled off those legs and we've equidistantly placed them around the table. Now that we've started the UV mapping process, we've used planar maps to make these two, the tabletop and the underside of the table. What we're going to move on to today is we're going to UV out the whole of the polytorus area. Just before we begin as well, I'm just going to say that in the description of this video and in my previous series of modelling a barrel, any hotkeys I use are listed in the video description. So if you're ever wondering what the context of a hotkey is, the scenario in which it's used, or the actual buttons for it itself, you can find little descriptions of each in there as a quick reference. So just getting started, we're going to merge these two UV shells we already have first. So we're going to go into Face Select by right clicking and holding down over Face. We're going to click one face, we're going to hold Shift and double click its adjacent face, and that's going to select this whole loop for us. Now we're going to hit Create and Cylindrical. That's going to unwrap this as a cylinder, which is what the object kind of is now, with a really stretched out front and edge facing. Now the issue here is that these are really stretched out, so we need to sort that. So we're going to hit R while we're over our UV editor, and we're just going to drag these out until these go a bit more square for us. So we're just going to keep doing that like so until they look about right. We can always zoom in a bit. So that's looking good now. Now we want the density on these to match above. So we're going to scale in both directions. We're going to scale downward. I'm just going to bring this right down. I'm going to go over to the side here where it's a bit more matched up. I need to come down just a little bit more until we're about there. Now that we've done that, we want to select both of these edges and we want to stitch these together. And we're just going to cut this up and stitch it as we go. So we're going to try and make each side have an even dispersion of edge faces on it. So we're going to cut two faces in, as this is a four-sided curve. So we're going to cut this edge here. I'm just going to press Q so this is a bit clearer, it gets rid of the little move tool. This highlighted edge, we're going to cut that, and then we're going to click this edge here, which is going to snap to here, because on the model they're one shared edge. It's hard to see, but it's highlighted there. It's one edge on the model, but it appears in 2 points on the UV because they're not attached yet. So we're going to stitch that now. We're going to come two faces up again, and we're going to hit cut, and then we're going to stitch together this here. We're going to come two faces in, and we're going to hit cut and stitch together here, and again we're just going to cut that and stitch it back to this little trim here. Now if you want to go further with this, we could select little corner faces like this, and we could hit sew, and then we could try and sew these and then sort out the distance running around, but it's not really necessary for what we're doing here. So we're going to leave that as is, and then we're going to get to work on the torus. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Face Select, and we're going to use another planar map on our y-axis again, and we're going to planar map out the underside of the torus. So we're just going to select all of these faces running around like so, and we're going to get the little bevel on the inside too, and we're going to get this outside bevel, and we're going to hit Create, and we're going to use Planar. Now if you didn't watch the last video, if we click this little expansion box, we do want y-axis ticked, and then we're going to hit Project. Now it's given us really big squares, which we don't want just now, so we want to make these bigger so that we can see that the density is the same as above. We need to make these a little bit smaller still, around about there, and we want to stretch these out just a bit because they're not quite square yet. So around about there, that's looking good for what we're doing. We're going to do another cylindrical now on the outside of this to give us all of these edges going round the way. So we're going to double click, and we're going to catch that bevel too when we do this. So we're going to do Create, and we're going to do Cylindrical. And now if we zoom in, it's going to show us here that we've got both sets done together, but they're still too wide. So we're going to just fix that by fixing this here. Now there's a little bit of distortion on the corners where these are stretched and these are square. It's not too bad and it's not going to be noticeable, so it's not an issue on the model. If this ever happens on a cylindrical unwrap, you can individually scale out the faces until everything's square, but if it's only slightly off like this, it's not going to have a big visual impact on your model. We're now going to do the same as we did before, where we select an edge and we hit stitch. Now we've got an issue here where this is stitching inside itself. The reason for this is because this has been projected back to front. The way we can check that is we can click on this little 3 green square L shape. Anything in red has been projected backwards. So to fix that, we hold right click, we go to UV shell, we click on our UV shell, we go to modify, and we go flip. And before we do any more, we're also just going to want to make sure the density on this matches this. Otherwise, this is going to get jumped up in scale and not match the tabletop. So we're just going to use both scale directions, and we're going to bring this down until the squares are the same density like so. Now we can start stitching these back together. So if we stitch this now, it appears exactly where we want. And we just want to double click these little edges here so that it selects the beveled side too, and we want to cut these. And then we want to use a stitch on both of these sides like so. And then we want to do the same here, where we want to double click, and we want to double click, and we want to cut, and we just want to stitch together these edges. We can't double click this because it's a perimeter edge which is going to run all the way around, so we just want to do it like so. And now if we really wanted, we could also even out these UVs by going into UV, and we could hover over like so, and then we could use the align and snap tool, and then these are going to allow us to align them to the highest point or to the lowest point based on these little buttons here. So wherever the white line is where it's aligning to. So we can align this one to the left, and we want to align this one to the right because we want to pull this beveled piece in line here. So we're just going to do that, and we can just quickly go around all the areas and align these so it's a bit neater for when we come to texturing it. So we're just going to keep doing this like so. I'm going to give that a ceiling on it, and we're going to floor this one, and we're going to put this one up with a ceiling, and then we're going to bring this one down with a floor. And we're going to do the same here, where we're going to push this one to the right, and we're going to push this one to the left. While we're doing this, we've got to be careful we don't accidentally select any other UVs that we don't want to move the position of. So we're going to move this to the right because we need to align it to the corner point. We don't want to move that corner point. We're going to push these to the left. We're going to bring these down, and we want to bring these ones up to meet this corner point again. This just allows you to keep your UV map a bit more neat and tidy and a little bit more workable when you're texturing. It's a lot easier if you're texturing in Photoshop to use a rectangular selection box to keep everything neat and tidy than trying to use the lasso tool to mark out little slightly off corner points and such. So now that we've done that, and we've got all our bevels made, we just need to sort out the inside of the torus now. So to do that, we're just going to, again, we're going to go into face select. I'm going to hit Q to get rid of the scale tool, and we're going to use shift to select out the faces on the underside like so. And we're just going to do create, and we're going to do planar, and that's appeared inside out again, or needs flipped, it's back to front. First we're just going to scale it so that we get the density right. So they're not quite square yet, that's looking better, and we want to scale this right up so that the density on this matches those below. So that looks about right now. So we'll flip that in the modify menu. So modify, then flip, and now we'll just move that up and out of our way. The last bit here is to just get these inside faces. So we're going to use shift and double click, and then shift and double click, and we're going to do create and cylindrical. And because this is an inside cylinder, again it's going to be back to front because the cylinder projection is taking faces on the outside, whereas these face inward. So we just do modify and flip to fix that, and we're just going to scale these right out until they're square again. And we're just going to bring the size on these down at the same time, like so, until they match above, round about there. Now in the next video, we'll UV map out the table legs, and we'll try and reduce the shell count down a little bit more as well. And then after that, we'll go on to export settings in the final video, and we'll show you how to get this all exported and game ready. So thank you for watching.